Good morning, everyone. Is it a good morning? Excellent. So, good morning, ladies, and of course, I can see a few gentlemen also in the audience. Uh, Good to have this conversation over a cup of coffee, you know. That is what I have loved all my. Coffee will come here as well. You're waiting for coffee or conversation also? Okay, excellent, excellent. So, something, many of you know me, of course. I'm Jagdish Patinkar. You're working very closely with all the women associations, women groups. I tried to live three dreams in my life, and all three remained in a way unfulfilled. Okay, so when I was in college in Pune, there was a cafe near my college by the name Cafe Delight, and whole day I would sit there. It was a joint for leftists, so you can imagine so much of conversation and discussion. And there was one waiter by the name Chandru, and he used to do this meter coffee, this typical South Indian meter coffee. And first time when I tasted it, I said, what is this drink? Because we used to make coffee at home the way tea would be made, and it was, horrible. So, so this was like a amrit to me when I drank that. And then first inspiration I got was I must do something in coffee. Maybe I should start a coffee shop. That was my first dream. The second dream I lived when I was in school, and in those days flying was not very common. But my school particularly was very adventurous. So they planned a trip for the school children, and I was in 5th standard, and I took my first flight from Pune to Mumbai. So that was my first flight, and I was so impressed by that whole thing, that experience, that for many years I wanted to be a pilot. And later on, when I moved into actual career, I was into advertising, and I dabbled into copywriting. And as I started doing copywriting, for various brands and things like that, I also thought of writing a couple of books. And the basic outline of that, it's still there. I've preserved it in a book, in a notebook, which is there in the cupboard. So these are the three dreams, and all the three dreams in a way remained unfulfilled. And here I am sitting with the two women who have actually lived that dream. So, that's why I told Parul, nothing doing. I'm going to conduct this session. I'm going to converse with these two wonderful ladies. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to, welcome here on stage with us, Mrs. Sonalini Menon, very much Bangalorean, number Bangalorean, as we can say it. As many of you know, she's an awake member also. Last year, she was awarded with Jewel of Karnataka, and during her lifespan, has won many, many awards in her career. I have worked very, very closely with her as a part of India International Coffee Festival. She is an avid coffee lover, coffee expert, coffee taster, runs an organization, traveled across the globe, globally known. So give a grand welcome to Mrs. Menon. And here is another wonderful lady with us, Ms. Manjeet Hirani. She's a pilot. For how many years you have been a pilot? 24 years. 24 years, and now a trainer. She's also the author, and that is so. She has lived two dreams of mine. She has been a pilot, and she's an author. She has published two. Her second book is just about to get released shortly, and here we have these two wonderful ladies with us. So, without spending any more time, because I know you are here to more listen to them than me talking to both of them. What I would do is I would open the conversation with both of you, starting with Mrs. Menon, as to, I would really like to understand from you as to what really in those days, my mom was also a school teacher, right? But not many women were into careers, wanted to do anything. And as early as I think in 60s and 70s, you must have moved into, doing. Yeah. So, can you tell us about what is it that inspired you to get into coffee and whatever that you are doing, or you did at that time?
There's probably a little story behind how I got into the coffee profession. When I was growing up, I grew up in Chennai, and being a very traditional home, I grew up in a very, very traditional home. The day started with my grandmother making her cup of coffee. Every week she would go down the street, buy the roasted coffee beans, bring them home, grind them on a small home grinder, and make the coffee on our very heritage, traditional Indian dabba filter, as I call it. Even today I use it. So it used to be brewed, the whole house used to be just filled with the aroma of coffee, beautiful smell. And I still remember, we used to literally plead with her to give us a few drops of coffee. Because, coffee was, even today I find that most homes, we bar children from drinking coffee. We say they need milk because they are growing up. So, well, that philosophy still remains. And I would plead with her saying, please do give me a few drops. And she would say, behave yourself today, study well, and you can have your few drops of coffee. So then I would take my milk, sit at the dining table, and feel so grown up drinking that milk. So those were the first nostalgic moments about coffee. I grew up with coffee. And during the holidays, we would be taken to the tea estates because my mother's brother was a tea manager of those days. It was called Finlay's. It was run by the British. So we would go there. There was no electricity. There was, good food to eat, big gardens to roam around. We could just walk where we pleased with no honking of horns or saying, be careful when you're crossing the road. We were never admonished. And I still remember going to the tea factory and, watching this tea being kept in little bowls, white crucibles as I would call them. And you might see my uncle taking a spoonful of it, making a loud slurp, and then spitting it out and saying, this is excellent. Or he would call the tea maker and fire him. So I used to think, what a fascinating job to be in. Take a spoonful, you make a loud slurp. My mother used to admonish me when I used to drink milk with a loud slurp. We used to love to have little milk mustaches. So I thought this was fascinating. And after they finished their tasting, as later on we realized that was tasting, me and my sister would have a spitting competition. We take a spoonful, make a loud slurp, and see who spat the farthest. Those were the memories that get locked into my memory bank. And when I finished my college, I'm a food technologist, I decided I'll be a dietitian. When I saw an ad in the papers in Bangalore, my father was working here, so I came in here. And the ad said, calling for a coffee taster. Now, it brought back memories of the spitting competition. So I applied for this, and I found I was the only woman. Everyone around me were men. All were doctorates. I was just a master's. I said, I'm not going to get this job. Who's going to give a woman? And I almost lost it, but fortunately for me, stood first in the written test and in the interview. And I fortunately had a chairman who's from Karnataka state, the IAS officer, Dr. Hedji, the late Dr. Hedji Viredi. He said, you cannot bias, you cannot, dismiss a person just because she's a woman. She stopped everything. Give her an opportunity. Culture may say that she will get married and leave. And all the training that we give, a lot of training goes into this profession, would go awry, would go to waste. But give her an opportunity. I have never looked back after that. I've been in coffee for many, many, many years, and I thoroughly enjoy my profession.
Wow. Absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. And it's nice to also hear, being a man, there was someone at that time who recognized.
I cannot do without you men.
So Manjeet, that brings me to the career that you chose, to be a pilot. I don't know, maybe you must be one of the very first pilots in those days, right? And how did you ever think of that, imagine that, and actually did it? That must be very, very exciting. We are all excited to know about it. Yeah, I think it should be on. Just try.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I have to say one thing, it was never my dream to be a pilot. And I didn't even know that ladies could fly. My father was in the army, so we used to get posted to various places. And I used to see a lot of guys in the Air Force, Hindon or somewhere. And it was my dream to marry a pilot. That's it. So in true way, my dream has not come fulfilled. But I joined Indian Airlines in 1986 as an air hostess. And I worked for 2 years. So when I was an air hostess, that time I realized I saw one lady pilot, Captain Saudamini Deshmukh. I'm sure everybody has.
She's the first pilot?
Actually, she's not the first in Air India, she's the second one.
I see.
First was Durba Banerjee. But she's a lady who got her command first, who really made it.
Okay.
And everybody knows about her.
Yeah.
So I still remember I was flying to her from Bombay to Calcutta. I was the hostess that day, and she came with me as a passenger. And somebody told me she's a pilot. So I said, wow, women can fly. Like, that was the first experience. And though still I would say I didn't have a dream to be a pilot. But after 6, 8 months, I realized my job that, okay, fine, I have to do something more challenging. And those days, there used to be a serial called Udan. If you all have seen it, it used to come on Doordarshan about Kavita Chaudhary struggling to be an IPS officer. So, I used to be very fascinated with this serial. And I used to think that, I should do something more challenging. Somehow I wanted challenge, that in the men's world, that you can't do and, you have to struggle and get it. So I decided to be a pilot. Trust me, an overnight decision. And my brother, who's your friend, Mahendra Singh, I had not even discussed this from my home, that I want to be a pilot. I just went to my friend's house. She gave me a form to fill. She said, we have to give an exam, RT, that is radio and telephony. And we need a gazetted officer's signature on the form. So I came home, gave it to my brother. I said, I need a signature of gazetted officer. He didn't even ask me a single question. He said, okay, I'll get it for you. So I filled up the form, studied for it, and I cleared the exam. Actually, there were 4 exams to be cleared. I cleared all 3. Then I told my mother, and my father died very young. He died of cancer in 1978. So we were living on his pension, and there was not much money. All 3 of us were working and studying together. So those days I spent 4 lakhs, which was a big sum. So how the money will come up, we were clueless. But because I kept giving the exams, and trust me, everything kept falling in the place. Like somebody gave me a loan of 1,10,000. There was a Sikh gentleman who gave me 50,000 rupees donation. I'd gone to his house and a couple of times. And last time I went to his house to tell him that, fine, it's okay, I can't raise the money, it's okay. But he went and his wife came with 50,000 rupees cash and she gave it to me. So things just worked. And I went to USA to do my flying.
Excellent. So, in a way, what I understand from both of you, that in those days, and things have changed, but not yet dramatically, and I think there is a lesson for all the young women today, that hurdles are bound to be there, right? I mean, you faced a situation where you thought that you would never make it. You faced a situation of financial challenges and how to raise money and all that, but you were persistent with it, and things started happening. So I think that is one important lesson I would say that that comes out, that the path for the ladies, in this male-dominated world is not easy. There are opportunities, but one has to be persistent, one has to be committed, and one has to keep trying, and then only probably you will be able to, in a way, achieve or fulfill your dream. So coming back to this challenges or this male-dominated world, I would like to ask Mrs. Menon, what are those challenges, in this male-dominated world? Something at the core of your heart you think many things get spoken and many things remain unspoken. What would you like to really say about it? Make your observation. You can be absolutely candid. I've been working with women's group, and there is a Ubuntu group, by the way, on our WhatsApp group, which is of all ladies. And there are only 2 gentlemen in that group. I'm one of them. So now you can. Yeah.
I think, basically what I found in my career was coffee is entirely male-dominated. I think all of us are very familiar with that. And I still remember when I used to walk into a room, where there's a meeting on, I would perhaps be the only woman entering it. And people, conversations would stop immediately seeing me walk in, wondering, this is not the room you should enter. This is the wrong room you've entered. And then I still remember another incident where a gentleman said, can I have a cup of coffee, please? So I said, sure, you'll be served a cup of coffee, but let me first say what I have to say. I've come for this meeting. So what I find is that there are very, very many challenges. There are challenges, perhaps in every profession there is a challenge, probably more so in some of these very male-dominated professions. But I think what I gathered over the years that I've been in is that if you know your subject, if you gather knowledge base on the subject, you one up above the people with whom you interact with, I think you can walk with confidence. You can walk into the room. And today when I walk into the room, I don't find anyone stopping the conversation. In fact, maybe they'll stop the conversation because they want to ask me a question saying, what opinion do you have on this subject? So there are challenges, but I think you can overcome this when you get the knowledge on the subject, when you are confident with yourself. And I always find that you have to put across your knowledge base or your opinion very, very subtly, very gently to get it across so that they hear your voice. And of course, once they know that you know what you're talking, I think the doors open, the carpets are thrown out, people welcome you into their gatherings, and you're no longer considered as a person of an opposite gender.
So in a way it is, yeah, indeed, yes, and almost all women here, they're all women of worth, as, Wow says, and they've all, I'm sure, gone through such similar situations. Manjeet, how about, what is your, because your field in a way was a very, very difficult field, and probably you were one of the first 10 pilots, if I may guess. So what would you like to say?
Yes, when I joined, that was in '89 as a pilot. So we were very few. I think just 2, 3 in Bombay, and overall, as you're saying, less than 10. So what I knew was that when I used to fly, any mistake you have made in the cockpit, trust me, everybody knew. Once, I don't know, I can't remember what I had done wrong, but at least 5 guys came and asked me that, Manjeet, this is what you did wrong today. Oh. So because it was, you were like a item piece for them, like a lady coming and flying with you. So you were talked about, every single thing. So as she's saying, you had to be good in your job, extremely. And that, of course, goes without saying, that you have to be, and you had to be one edge above the guys. Because if you made a mistake, everybody will talk about it.
Yeah, it will get amplified.
Yeah. And the drawback with women, I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but what happens is, there's a man-to-man bonding. They will meet over a drink, they will meet over a place of squash, game of squash or something, which we women can't do. So their tie-ups are very strong. And when they're training, things are easy, settings are done, but we can't do that. If you do that, you're labeled. Okay, she's talking to that guy too much, something is on between them. So you had to be careful about those things also, because you want to definitely secure your image also, your image conscious also. And also, this is, I hope it's not recorded and all, it's off this thing. Okay.
Not.
Once I'd gone for a flight from Bombay to Delhi, and I was supposed to operate a flight Delhi to Kathmandu.
Okay.
Bombay to Delhi, I went as a passenger, and I was to do a flight Delhi to Kathmandu. But the senior commander, when he saw me, he's saying, no, I'm not going to fly with a woman. So I was bumped off the flight. Like I had gone, so I was sent back to the hotel. So
he actually refused flying with you?
Yeah, he refused flying with me. So we have faced all those things. But of course, to me it was okay, fine. I'll go to Delhi, Hotel Taj, we used to stay and have a nice buffet. That time we were not health conscious and we used to eat everything in the buffet. So, but I'm just saying, yes, these were the challenges. And now, fortunately, there are many girls. So now it doesn't matter, all we hear is, okay, who's a co-pilot, who's this thing. It doesn't matter whether it's a girl or a boy. It's, what we want to know is how much experience they have, how many hours you have. Because now that I'm a trainer, so I fly with brand new co-pilots. For me, the only thing I want to know, how many hours you have, how much experience you have. It doesn't matter whether you're a girl or boy.
Okay. So in a way, I would say 2 things I have noted from what you mentioned just now, that one of the biggest challenges that women do face, and I'm sure even today that problem persists, is even a small mistake gets amplified. A small mistake gets amplified, and which means you are always put on test. It's like you're always on test. You have to keep proving yourself. I would like to share with you an experience of mine when I was flying. A very senior gentleman sitting next to me, must be from the top management of one of the best organizations. And we had a wonderful conversation. I was flying to Delhi. And the flight was just about to land. I mean, few minutes before that. For some reason, it didn't land. And, it got prolonged and it flew over the airport and then it started taking right. what he says, to me, and I still remember those words. मुझे पता था, ये lady pilot है ना, कुछ तो पंगा होगा. Can you believe this? I mean, I was stunned, after hearing that comment. And I told him that, look, gentlemen, I know, I have come across an astronaut who's a woman. At that time, Sunita Williams and I had done one event with her. So I said, what are you talking about? There are astronauts who are women. And here you are doubting the capability of a woman who's a pilot? I mean, this was just about a decade ago. This is the kind of. So that is one. So the problems get amplified. And the only way probably is to deal with it is you better be good. Good means very good. So in a way, there is a message to all of us here, women, that, the world is still testing us. But we have to look at it positively. And this challenge is going to make us even better. So we have to work hard to prove ourselves even better than the colleagues and the men, so that, our dream of equality, an equal world where men and women are shoulder to shoulder in every respect, we realize soon. So I think those two wonderful insights that both of you have given. So moving forward, so this is about the early days. Now you've been in this profession, you've been there, done that. You were with Coffee Board, right? For many years, you were heading the research over there. What really inspired you to get out of that job and get into something which was untested, waters, in a way? Because I have not heard of any coffee lab, the kind of lab that you run. If some of the images are there, you can put those images here on the screen. So can you share that with us?
Actually, it was a quirk of fate. I worked in the Coffee Board for 20 years, and the market got liberalized for coffee in 95 September. And I took the voluntary retirement, saying I've had enough of working. My husband was working in an overseas country. My daughter was with me. We decided enough is enough. We'll go and join Papa. We won't be here in India anymore. Let's go and join him. So I resigned from the board, took my voluntary retirement, and decided to go back to where my husband was working. But then I think, that's why I say it is a male-dominated profession, but when you develop the confidence in the male farmers, or the very few women farmers, it's mainly men. And even if I own a farm, it'll be my husband who will run the farm. That's the heritage in our country. So I decided that I would leave when the farmers came to me and said, you can't leave us in the lurch right now. We need your help. You've been in quality for many years. You've taught us many things about how to improve, but we don't know how to market coffee with quality. How do we link the two? So you cannot just leave us. So that's when I thought about it, and I said, I can come provided you allow me to be with my family at least 15 days in a month. That's how the journey started. I set up the lab. The farmers helped me. And though I decided I would spend only 15 days at home, it became 20 days, it became 25 days, then it became once in 2 months. I mean, coffee is something which is so, it's so stimulating, so energizing, and it just draws you to it. And it draws you especially when you find that you have the trust and faith of the farmers. They put their whole livelihood into my hands. And that's when I realized, oh my God, I really must do my job really well. They trust me so implicitly. They've given me their entire produce. They want me to market it for them. They want me to develop brands for them. And it's, that's how I started Coffee Lab. Started it as a very small venture, thinking to myself, I probably will be in the red every day. Well, I was in the red for a very long time. I still remember Renuka, my colleague who worked with me, is here with me. This would be a big joke. Every Saturday we would say, you hold the green hat, I'll hold the red hat, and we'll sit outside the lab hoping that people will come and give us their coffee produce. That's how we started the journey. But today, I would say, it's not that I've reached the end of the tunnel or that I've become a millionaire, but what I think I've really gained from this experience is that a woman, when she makes up her mind, she learns her subject. There will be challenges to challenge your mind. There will be challenges to strengthen your hands. But I think if you have a dream, you have dedication, you have determination, and you have diligence. You acquire knowledge, and most importantly, be humble. I think you can achieve whatever you set yourself for.
Fantastic. But But tell us a little more about this coffee lab. I mean, we are curious to know what exactly happens there. I mean, people walk in with their beans and ask you to do something about it.
Yeah.
How do corporate come to you? Internet? I see you connected globally. I mean, how that has happened?
Yes, let me just tell you a little bit about Coffee Lab. You always wonder, how can there be a lab for coffee? In fact, I was just telling Manjit a few minutes ago, I was going down the road for a walk last evening. I take off 20 minutes off from work every evening because I need to walk. I need to get my senses cleared up, and I need to give my palate a rest. So I walked down the road, and I met this lady, and she said, "What do you do?" I said, "I work in coffee. I have a lab." She said, "What's this lab? How can you have a lab for coffee?" And then when I said I'm a taster, she was even more floored. She said, "Oh, you drink coffee the whole day? And you get paid also for it? What a lovely job. I'd love to join you." So let me just dispel some of those little myths that one has about a lab for coffee, what I do as a taster. What we do is we receive coffees from different regions across India, across the globe. I get coffees from around the world. And what we do is when the coffee bean comes in, we have a certain protocol that we need to follow for roasting it, for grinding it, for preparing the brew. But then you need to have the acuity of taste. And fortunately, I think both of us have the acuity of taste, my colleague and myself, we have the acuity of taste. We're able to make out small nuances. I'm sure there are many in this room who have a fabulous acuity of taste. It's just that, you say, "Oh, too much salt in my food today. Oh, I can get a funny smell today in the kitchen." I'm sure all of us have gone through those. And some of us have got that very keen perception of sense of smell. So we develop that. So in my lab, we taste these coffees. We identify the uniqueness of these coffees, the negatives in the coffees. Then we also have to give them the reasons or the causative factors for these negatives and the positives. And we guide the farmer as to how, when he plucks the cherry, coffee incidentally is a fruit. We only consume the seed within the fruit. How the cherries must be plucked, how the pulp material must be removed, how to process the beans, how to dry the coffee beans. And there are so many steps where quality can be adversely affected. So we give them the reasons, and when they confirm it, it's great excitement in the lab. So that's one aspect of testing the quality, how to improve it, how to develop a brand for coffee. You'll be surprised, but green beans can be sold in the market as a branded product. It's not manufactured. It's natural. It's nature's own beans. How do I present it in the world market? That's where the challenge comes in. It's a uniqueness in the beans. You'll be surprised, but coffee has a citrus note. It is orange. It is lemon. We always think of coffee. When you ask someone, I'm sure in this group, if I ask someone, what is the taste that you get? You probably will say, it's very strong. It's got a nice chocolate caramel note, or it's very bitter. There's so much beyond that. There's so much of character there. So we identify those characteristic notes and develop the brand. We have brands like Taste of Freedom. We have Veerati Khan. We have Buttercup Bowl, Temple Mountain. These are well-established brands, and the buyer comes back repeatedly every year to buy these beans. That's one aspect. Second aspect is we certify coffees for many buyers around the world. We have Illy Cafe, which we do completely. It's an international brand. We do the entire certification for Indian coffee that goes from here. We also do a lot of blending for the cafes. We have Costas, we've done a blend for them. We've done for Cafe Coffee Day. We do all their blends. We also do a blend for Flying Squirrel. We've done blends for Dunkin' Donuts. So we do blends across the globe. We do it even overseas clients. We have lots of blends that we make. We train people. If any of you would love to, dabble and appreciate coffee and see whether you have a great palate, I sort of encourage you to come to some of those one-day courses that we hold, where you can appreciate the nuances in the cup and go beyond just saying the coffee is strong or the coffee is weak or the coffee is bitter. I think that's the major part of work that we do. We also work with the machine manufacturers, checking the quality of their equipment. I do training across the globe. I go overseas. I train farmers in different parts of the world. I also teach. I teach at the University of Udine in Italy. I do the master's course for them. So it's just not just putting a spoon into your mouth, rolling it and spitting it, looking wise, but there's a lot of science behind the whole.
Wow. So inspirational. I mean, unbelievable. And I have been working with her. I've been so fortunate to work with her on the coffee festival that we put together and the workshops that you conduct and how it just draws audience from across India, across globe. It's absolutely unbelievable, really. Coming back to this inspiration aspect, you have to draw inspiration from what you do and probably that takes you to the higher level, next level. And I think something like that happened with you, Manjeet. I mean, you were a pilot for 25 years and is it something that when you sit in that cockpit and look around and something starts happening? I mean, what really made you, while continuing with your profession, get into writing? And tell us about I think you wrote a first book, a family kind of a book, and now there is another book that you are writing. So we are very curious to know about it.
I'll talk about it. Yeah, actually, I think what happens is, it's also in your belief system. Like I've seen a lot of pilots who, or whatever professions they do that profession and they retire with that profession. With me, I think I have this thing, though I've understood these things now, but the patterns have been same since childhood. Like I believe in being a constant seeker. For me, I do one thing like, I'll give you a little background of my family. I come from an extremely traditional family and I was engaged. Believe me, I was engaged when I was born. And to me, I had no goal, no ambition in my life. When I was in 9th standard, before my father died, he got me officially engaged because it was a childhood thing. And to me, it was only you have to get married. That's it. So when I came in 11th standard, I was 16 years old. I was in college. This guy came to meet me for the first time in college. And I just told him one thing, that, I don't want to marry you and I can't marry you. Because to me, it was the world. I didn't want to just get married and close myself like my other cousins and my relatives had done. That's what I'm saying. The patterns, now I understand. But now that I've done some these psychometric tests and all for my this thing, so I've understood that these things have not come now. These are my patterns right from childhood. So first thing, I broke the engagement. And first thing what I did was I told my mother I want to be a graduate. And because in our household, the girls would be 10th or 12th, max 12th, and get married. So I was the first graduate from the family. Then the next step I wanted to do was I wanted to work. So I worked with a shoe company. Then I realized, no, I have to do something more. I became an air hostess. From hostess, I became a pilot. So when a pilot, then of course, the things in your own profession, you want to upgrade yourself. So I became a commander. Then I became a trainer. So for me, the thing was always there, constant seeker.
Correct.
Because I feel this is not enough. Okay, you put a couple of years to do one particular thing. Then you're done with that, You've mastered it. Then the next step. Now I'm a trainer, I've mastered that act. So I started writing blogs. Because I also, I write blogs on manjeethirani.com, if you go through. I have a lot of quest of life. Like I will go and do a past life regression. I'll question things like about, today what I am, was it my destiny? Was it I destined for this? Or did I make my destiny? So always my mind overworks, about faith of God, about this, about that. So I keep writing that about my blogs. So this dog which came to our house, my husband is Rajkumar Hirani, who's made 3 Idiots and PK, Munna Bhai MBBS, the series. So he made a film PK. And in that film, there was a dog, if you all have seen the film, when Anushka Sharma's hand, little baby. So I was very scared of, petrified of dogs right from childhood. And my son always wanted a dog, but never came to the house because of my fear. So when the dog, after the shoot, was supposed to go back to the breeder, my husband decided to send it home. So he actually gift wrapped it in a basket, put ribbons and all that, and he sent it to the house. Oh. So Buddy is the name of the dog. In the film, he was Niku. So he was only 6 weeks old, though I was very scared of dogs. But when he came to the house, and there's an introduction that my son has written about it. So I welcomed the dog. To me, it was like, I would say, motherhood revisited. So because that, how do I say, the philosophy was there, it's all the time in me, I philosophize everything. I philosophize food also. If you take me to your coffee plantations, I'll philosophize that also. So I started capturing this thing about Buddy, the first time Veer, my son, he was 14 when we got the dog. He said, I'll do everything. But, we all know that the children just play and he used to sleep with Veer, that's it. So I had to take the charge, take him to the vet, see what food he eats. Then after immunizations, I thought I'll take him for a walk. And I took him for a walk. And that's the first time I've taken a dog for a walk. So I was clueless. I took him very close to my house. You won't believe it that day. 4, 5 or maybe more, the stray dogs came chasing after us. And I got so scared, I started crying. And there were some women, they had some hay on their heads. I told them, please, please, aap log mujhe gher lo. And I stood inside them and I said, please shoo away the dog. So they did that. And I told one guy, he was traveling, I said, please drop me to the house. So he came and he escorted me to the house. So I mentioned this incident to a friend of mine who stays in the area. She's saying, Arey, do one thing, don't go there, you go near the school, there are no stray dogs there. There's a school close to my house. So next day I took the dog over there. When I took him to the school, till the street, there were no dogs. But when I crossed the road, again the stray dogs came behind us. I quickly crossed the road. But when I crossed the road, those guys didn't come behind me. So that is the first blog I wrote. It's still there on my website. I said, dogs are very territorial. They have their own territory. And each one has it. So I said, but then, because I'm very fond of reading all kinds of books, I said, but so are, the tigers are territorial. The apes are territorial. The fish is territorial. But I said, so are we human beings. We human beings also fight over territories, about religion, about caste, about Kaveri River, which I find it very funny, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu fighting over it. It's water of the nature, and 2 states fighting over Kaveri River issue. So I said, but so are we at home also. We have our favorite chair. In the kitchen, saas bahu ka jhagda hota hai of the domain. So we are territorial as human beings. So that I felt comes from the nature. So why do we blame? It's inheritance. But I said we human beings are above these, we have a consciousness, we can rise above these things. So this I wrote, then I wrote about puberty. When my dog was 2 years old, he was all over on the sofa, on the table. I said, this is nature, we are accepting it. And my son was 14. I said, when he's also still hitting at puberty, or if somebody has a daughter there, so the parents become like watch guards. I said, why are we so this thing? It's nature. We don't live life as per nature. So this is how I made my observations. And I wrote 3 I posted on my blog. I wrote 10 of them in my iPad. And I thought I'll post 1 every week, make life easy for myself. But then that constant, this thing in me, I was at Delhi airport once, and there's a big bookshop called W.H. Smith. I was, we get ground time over there. I had some 2 hours there. I go to the shop, tell a salesman, I said, I've written a book. He says, yes, very good, madam. And I said, it's about my dog. I have only 10 of those chapters. And I said, can you give me some names of publishers? So he was very sweet, Rajmal Sharma. He gave me 3 names. One was Rupa, one was HarperCollins, one was Penguin. Anyway, I'll tell you the Penguin story. I called a Penguin and I said, I've written a book. He said, really? Okay. Can you give us 50,000 words? I said, I don't understand words, but I have some chapters, I called it. I have 10 chapters with me. So she was actually being very reluctant about it. I said, okay, I'll do one thing. I'll send you the link of my blog on the WhatsApp. If you like it, you see. If you don't like it, I'm fine with it. So next day, the same day, in fact, I will not even wait for the next day. I quickly sent her the link of my blog. Next day, I get a call for her, around 10:30, 11. She's saying, we like the concept. Because it's a new concept, because it's all philosophy. She said, can you give us 25,000 words? So again, I told her, please don't talk about words. I've never counted how many words I write. I just write how much I feel like writing. So she said, okay, give me 20 chapters. So I had 10 with me. I wrote another 10, honestly, in 20 days. And I submitted everything. And then they came back with a contract. And then there was a little gap, I thought, abhi nahi hoga, bol rahe hain. But one fine day, I get an email, ki let's start working on edit. So that was something euphoric, and it happened, and here it is.
Super. Lovely. So, in a way, you actually lived your dream, in the sense, everything that you looked at it philosophically, you talk to the publisher, you actually send. So many times I feel that what we all do is we think of doing many things and we just leave it halfway through. We just don't pursue it. And when we pursue with something, yeah.
Okay. I'll just add, just to interrupt.
Yeah, sure, sure.
I feel I have simple 3 mantras in life. First one is to be a constant seeker. And to be a constant seeker, one has to take action. जो आप बोल रहे हैं, okay?
Yes.
Because ठीक है, आपको लगता है कि इसके बाद ये करना है, वो करना है, but you have to take action, otherwise it'll be just left in your heart and in your mind only. And the third is, for me, I'm an explorer. I think you have to explore in life. There's so much to offer. Life is just beyond your work, your family, yourself. There's much more to that.
Excellent. So 2 lessons I have learned from this little conversation of inspiration. One thing is, now that my second phase of life would begin probably at some point of time, I'll come back to you. Rather than retiring, I would like to retire with maybe a cafe. With Chandru there, designer cafe, and will take inputs from you. And those 2 books which are, in my notebook, just kept preserved. Maybe I'll take that out and look at how I can take this further. Excellent. Thank you so much for these 2 insights. Moving further, as you know, this entire gathering is about, women of worth. Many of them are entrepreneurs, right? So, what kind of opportunity? I mean, the coffee world has just opened up, isn't it? I mean, I am working with you and I'm so fascinated by what is happening in this sector. Why don't you share with others as to what opportunities you see? And I'm sure at the end of the session, if there are 10 entrepreneurs emerging out of this conversation, it would be wonderful.
I think when you look at women per se, I think all of us in this room will agree that whenever we take on any assignment, we are very conscientious, we are very careful, our attention to detail is more than 100%, and we study the profession very carefully. And most importantly, I notice, at least we have seen in our own company, that when I give a task to a woman, when I ask her to complete a particular item of work, even if it goes beyond time, she'll never put it off for tomorrow. It's always completed. And I think what I would like to perhaps put across to the women here is, I think it would be a great idea for us to set up a small roastery. You can form a small self-help group, set up little roasteries, and set up a small roaster. Today, especially not only in the south, people in the north, in the east, in the west of India, everyone drinks coffee. Coffee is considered, as she was just saying, it's a style statement today. So I think we can pursue this style statement. I think we as women can get together, set up a little roastery, roast coffee, sell it in small packages. That could be one option. The second option today is, if you look at all the cafes, now we need the barista. Now, the barista is not just a coffee maker. I still remember when cafes first opened their doors here in India. When I would talk about the barista, oh, that coffee cook, is it? He cooks, he makes coffee. What is it? It's something like Chandru, but Chandru is actually an honor job.
Yes.
But people don't understand that. But today, people look at a barista with great respect, not just a coffee maker. She or he is the link between the coffee machine and the coffee consumer, a very vital link to serve an excellent cup of coffee. So today you have, courses, you can become a barista. And we want barista in the cafes. Cafes have come up, I think there are more than 3,100 cafes in India today. So that's another beautiful profession. I mean, it doesn't matter, age is no bar at all over here. In fact, I feel, when I walk into the cafe, I have a lot of gray hair on my head. People look at me saying, you're coming into the cafe. But today, people look at me, okay, she's also coming into the cafe. Good fun, let's join in the fun. So you can be a barista too. You can also perhaps, work. In fact, there is a cafe. You can open up your own cafe. Today, there is a cafe which is run by a woman called Coffee Mechanics. She and her husband and another partner have set up a cafe. So you can set up a small little cafe. You can have book reading. You can, sell all the food that you make. I know all of us are excellent cooks. I mean, I was just walking around. You have some delicious, food items that you can serve along with your coffee. Today, it's coffee pairing. It's not just drinking, a cup of coffee. It's a cup of coffee. I always say coffee is a harbinger of memories, of conversation, a lot of laughter. So I think we can generate that through just taking on this coffee bean. A tiny bean, it's a bean of wisdom, let me tell you. It's so creative, it's so complex, and it's beautiful to be in this profession. So those of you who'd like to, get into the coffee business, please come over to my lab. It's more like a museum. Because I believe that when you work, you need to have aesthetics around you. You need to be happy. You need to remember those various little places that you went to or the little anecdotes that you had in your life. I think I have all those little, anecdotes in those little mugs, in those coffee roasters, in those little packets of coffee, and in the mugs of coffee. So I think you could come to my lab, probably see what we do, smell the coffee, go through an appreciation course, and set up your own little cafe or your own little darshini. I mean, today filter coffee is still very popular in our country. Have a tiny little darshini, serve a nice cup of coffee with maybe some pakodis to go with it. I always love pakodis. So you can serve it with the pakodis and probably, get that satisfaction from that tiny bean.
Excellent, excellent. And Manjit, how about you? What kind of opportunities you see in your field, maybe going forward to the ladies here, you would like to share some ideas about what is possible?
Yes, of course. I feel, see, of course, in aviation, one thing is to do professional flying, but also there are things like one can do just hobby flying. Because whenever I meet some people, like you're saying, it is my dream to be a pilot.
Yeah.
I say, you can do it now. You can just do a PPL course, private pilot's license. You just need 40 hours.
Age is no bar?
Age is no bar.
I'm going.
Yes.
Oh, seriously?
Yes. Because I feel, why not? I mean, you can be in your profession. Because see, I did my flying from USA. And over there, the flying club which we used to do, flying, there were many people who were just PPL holders. You need that basic initial license.
Yeah.
They would hire a plane and take it over a weekend and go for a weekend outing. But in India, we don't do this. There is hang gliding, there is paragliding, and all that is done in Panchgani. In fact, I had gone to Switzerland for a holiday, that great Interlaken where Yash Chopra always shoots.
Yeah.
So I did paragliding there. And that lady, she told me that in winters, that's the time in summers she does over there. In fact, I have a number also, Australian instructor. In summers, she comes to Panchgani and she teaches paragliding.
Oh.
One can also do as a vocation, or as I said, PPL, and now things are coming up, these things, you can just hire a plane and say, take a flight from Pune to Goa, spend your weekend in Goa and fly down and come back. So I always feel, even if you're 60, if you had a dream to be a pilot, you can do it. In India, or you can go abroad and do a course, it just takes a month. So one should fulfill your dreams and desires if you had anything,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for such a lovely
And
conversation.
there's one in Kamshet also.
One in Kamshet also. There are so many places around my city. I think I can retire happily, start a cafe, have a book publishing, conversation. Yeah, fly, super, and keep coming back to Bangalore also, because that is another lovely place for me. Great. And before we conclude, and I know the next panelists are here, and I think the next session is also on food, right? Oh, so much of aroma is already spreading into the room. Some of the ladies would like to ask maybe a couple of questions we can take and then move on to the next session. So are there any questions anybody would like to ask? Just raise your hand and we can take. Just take the mic. Just take the mic. Yeah.
You said you have one-day courses where you're in Bangalore?
Yes, my lab is in Bangalore. The courses are held in Bangalore at my lab, which is in Sadashiv Nagar. So we'll give you the address if you still feel like you can just come and see and smell the coffee in my lab.
Probably she needs the contact details, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, this coffee was really intoxicating.
Okay. Here is another youngster. Yeah.
Hi, it was lovely to hear both of you. So Nalini, you mentioned about your job that you love, but you didn't mention what you had to give up for it. So I've heard that tasters don't eat a lot of things and don't drink and don't do a lot of things that you would otherwise do. So would you like to mention that?
Yes, probably I'll start with saying I gave up my life for coffee. Generally what we need to preserve the palate. Of course, if I have a tea taster in the room, he probably will contest it. But I have seen over the years that I have been in coffee, I have to preserve my palate, which means I sort of modulate the spice. In India we eat a lot of spicy food, so I keep off the spicy food. Of course, alcohol, that's another thing that we keep off, because an occasional glass of wine is not going to affect the palate. But hard liquor, yes, we keep off hard liquor. Smoking, yes. And of course, when I'm coming into tasting, I have to have a good night's rest. Otherwise, I probably will see double into my coffee cup. So it's very important that I keep good health. And the most important thing is to ensure that I am able to carry on this organoleptic testing that I carry out, which because it's very subjective when I speak, becomes very objective through the years of training and experience that we have, preserving health, preserving the mind. I think it's very important that we calibrate ourselves. We go through a lot of tests. In fact, every 3 years, I go through a test to see whether I'm on par with others in the industry who are considered brilliant in their cupping knowledge. So these are the things that we need to keep in mind when I cup coffee. Otherwise, I still remember when I joined the board, people would say, oh, today she's in a bad mood, she's given me poor marks. Today she's in a good mood, she gave me pluses for my coffee. So to make it very objective, you need to preserve your health, preserve your state of mind, and you need to go with very positive attitude. And of course, you have to learn. I keep learning every day. And I keep training every year. So I can never say I know it all.
Thank you. Thank you. So I will conclude this with the last question to you, Manji. She talked about giving up, resisting and all that. This question I have for you, and I am curious about it, that how have you been able to resist all the glamour world around you because of Rajkumar, such a celebrated director? You could have chosen to be a glamorous wife of a glamorous director. Instead of that, you have charted your own course, doing so much. How do you do that?
Actually, I became a pilot in 93 and I got married in 94. So I have always been a pilot, and when Raju, that time, was into editing, then he started doing advertising, then he made his first film in 2001, Munna Bhai MBBS. But when I got married to him, it was an arranged marriage. The only thing I told Raju's father was that I will keep my job. I will leave your son, but not my job. These were my words. And even to Raju, when he asked me, since I said it was an arranged marriage when we spoke, the first question he asked me was, do you want to ask me something? I said, no, I have to tell you things. Because those days, as I said, we were very few of us. So I gave him my whole job profile, because we travel a lot. We have to travel out of, for a couple of days also out of the house. So he was fine with that. And I said, if you're fine with my job, I'm fine with you. For me, there were no other questions. So I would say, as a person, you have to firstly take pride in what you do. If you take pride in what you do, what your husband is doing, of course, you'll feel proud of him, but that will not overpower. If you're happy with your own job, you're satisfied, then I think this glamour world doesn't matter. Though we are part of the film industry, but we are not. We go once in a while for a party or something, but both of us have our individual professions. And as she said, what do you give up? The timings. Because for me, if I have an early morning departure at 5:30 a.m. and there's a party previous night or an invitation, I can't take it. And this also, of course, your health gets affected, because when my son was born, for first 5 years, I would do only night flights so that I would be at home during the daytime. But then I feel, now when I look back, I feel it was a toll on me, It really took a toll on my health, because my logic was that at least I'm at home during the daytime to monitor him. So yes, till date, I'll be honest with you, I don't like those night flights or early morning flights. So we can't just randomly, somebody will call me up, come home for dinner, let's have a wine in the evening. You can't do that because you have restrictions. But then I remind myself, I love my job, I want to do it, and it's okay if I don't go for a party or something.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you, for such a lovely and inspiring, conversation that we had. And her book is available, in one of the booths. Penguin Publishers have a booth here, and her book is there. I think on Monday it is getting released, right, in Mumbai. So once again, 3 cheers to both the lovely ladies. Thank you so much. Thank you.